Some pain stays for years. Not because what happened was so big, not because you're weak, but because every single morning, without even realizing it, you kept picking it up again. Here's the thing nobody tells you about letting go. It's not a feeling. It's a decision you have to make over and over again until the feeling finally catches up. And today, I want to walk you through exactly how that works. Not therapy talk, not just forgive and move on, real mechanics, real stories, real shifts. Stay with me. Let me ask you something. Do you have a thing, a person, a version of yourself, a moment that you know is over, but it still takes up rent-free space in your head? Maybe it's a relationship that ended 3 years ago and you still replay the last conversation. Maybe it's a job you lost and you still feel like you have to prove something. Maybe it's a version of your life that didn't happen and you're still quietly grieving it. If any of that is true, you're not broken. You're just caught in what I call the resistance loop. And here's the twist most people never see coming. The pain you're carrying right now, most of it isn't from the event itself. It's from the fight against the fact that the event happened. That's what we're unpacking today. The art of letting go, without bitterness, without pretending, without losing yourself in the process. I want to share with you a story about a friend I know, Anne. Anne was a product manager at a startup she loved. 5 years. She built the culture. She hired the team. She gave up weekends. And then, in a 20-minute meeting, she was let go. Restructuring. Nothing personal. That was 2 years before I heard her story. And when she talked about it, you could still hear the heat in her voice. The way she described the CEO, every detail surgically sharp. The exact words he used. And I asked her, "What do you think about most when you think about that time?" She said, "I think about how wrong it was, how I deserved better, how I should have seen it coming." 3 responses: past, past, past. She wasn't living in 2024. She was living in a 20-minute meeting from 2 years ago. That's the resistance loop. Here's how it actually works, and I want you to really sit with this because it changed how I understand human suffering. When something painful happens, your brain does 2 things. Thing 1, it processes the event. Pain, grief, anger, all of that is normal. That's your system working correctly. Thing 2, it asks a question. The question is, does this make sense? Does this fit my understanding of how the world should work? When the answer is no, when the event feels unfair, random, or wrong, your brain refuses to file it away. It keeps the file open. It keeps returning to it. It keeps trying to resolve it, to find the ending that makes sense. But here's the devastating part. Some endings never come. Some people never apologize. Some doors never reopen. Some explanations never arrive. And if you're waiting for the world to give you the resolution you deserve before you let go, you might be waiting forever. The resistance isn't protecting you. It's keeping you in a room where the fire already went out. Now here's where it gets counterintuitive. Most people think, I need to stop thinking about it. That is exactly the wrong move. The research on emotional suppression is brutal. When you actively try not to think about something, your brain treats it like a threat and monitors for it constantly. You think about it more. Daniel Wegner called this the ironic process theory. The white bear problem. Tell someone not to think about a white bear, guess what they're thinking about? Letting go is not suppression. It's the opposite. It's full acknowledgement. Yes, this happened. Yes, it hurt. Yes, it was real. Followed by a deliberate choice to stop arguing with the reality of it. That distinction is everything. So the first shift, and write this down if you're that kind of person, stop fighting the fact. Start grieving the loss. Fighting the fact sounds like, this shouldn't have happened. It wasn't fair. I didn't deserve this. Grieving the loss sounds like, this happened. It hurt. I'm allowed to feel that. And now I'm choosing, slowly, to put it down. One keeps the wound open. The other lets it scar. Both hurt, but only one heals. Here's the most common objection I hear when I talk about this. If I let go, doesn't that mean they win? I need to spend some time here, because this is genuinely the thing that keeps most people stuck. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus and his business partner of 6 years had a falling out over money. The partner, let's call him David, had been skimming from their shared accounts. Small amounts at first, then bigger. When Marcus found out, David gaslighted him for months before Marcus finally had the proof and got out. Marcus won the legal case. He got compensated. He should have been able to move on. But 5 years later, Marcus was still telling the story at every dinner party, still monitoring David's LinkedIn, still tracking whether David's new business was doing well. And when I asked him, what would letting go look like? He said, it would mean that what David did was okay. And it wasn't okay. That sentence right there is the bitterness trap. Letting go does not mean what happened was okay. Let me say that again because people need to hear it. You can fully believe that someone treated you wrong and choose to stop carrying it. These are not contradictory. They are completely separate decisions. What happened to Marcus was wrong. Full stop. David was dishonest and manipulative. That is a fact that exists independently of whether Marcus continues to be angry about it. The anger doesn't make it more wrong. Letting go doesn't make it less wrong. The facts of what happened are fixed. They're not going anywhere. The only thing that's variable is how much of your present life you spend reliving them. There's a concept in acceptance and commitment therapy. Not going full therapist mode on you here, I just want to borrow one image. They describe it like this. Imagine you're in a tug of war with a monster, huge, terrifying, and you're pulling as hard as you can, because the moment you lose, you fall into a pit. What's the move? Most people say, pull harder, don't give up. But ACT says, drop the rope. Not because you lost, not because the monster wins, but because as long as you're in the tug of war, you can't go anywhere else. Your entire life is the rope. Your entire focus is the monster. The moment you drop the rope, the monster is still there. It doesn't disappear. But now you can take a step to the left. You can look around. You can choose a direction that isn't toward or away from the thing that hurt you. Marcus wasn't free. Not because David was in his life. David was completely out of his life. Marcus wasn't free because he'd made David the center of gravity for his entire identity. Being wronged by David was the most important thing that had ever happened to him, because the anger was the only thing making him feel like the situation mattered. But it already mattered, whether he was angry or not. This is the part most people miss, and I think it's the most important mechanism in the whole conversation. Sometimes we don't let go because we're attached to the pain. Not because we like pain, but because the pain has become part of how we answer the question, who am I? I'm someone who was betrayed. I'm someone who was let down at the worst moment. I'm someone who gave everything and got nothing back. These are real stories, but they're also identities. And here's the terrifying thing about identity. We protect our identities even when they hurt us. Because if you let go of the story, if you stop being the person who was wronged, then who are you? That question is scarier than the anger, because anger is familiar. Emptiness is unknown. So some people choose the anger, not consciously, but functionally. They choose it every day. I want to get real about what bitterness actually costs, because I think we underestimate it. Bitterness is not free. It has a metabolic price. When you spend cognitive energy on past grievances, you're spending it on something with zero return. You're not solving anything. You're not preventing anything from happening again. You're not even properly processing it. You're just running it on a loop. And here's what that loop is actually doing. It's keeping your nervous system in a low-grade threat response. You're not at fight or flight, but you're not at rest either. You're at simmer. And simmering for years does quiet damage to your focus, your relationships, your ability to be present. The research on this is sobering. Chronic resentment correlates with elevated cortisol, compromised immune function, and, this one hit me, reduced future decision-making quality. Because your brain is already partly allocated to the past grievance, you're literally making worse choices about the future because you haven't let go of the past. So the second shift is this. Letting go is not a moral statement about what happened to you. It's a practical decision about who gets to direct your future. If you keep the anger, you're giving whoever hurt you a seat at the table of every decision you make going forward. If you release it, you're not saying they were right. You're saying, you don't get to be here anymore. That's not weakness. That's the hardest kind of strength there is. Okay, so we've established what the problem is and why it persists. Now I want to get practical, because this is where most content on this topic completely fails people. They tell you to let go, but they never tell you how. And that gap is where people either give up or feel guilty for not being able to do something that sounds simple, but is actually incredibly hard. So let's break this down into actual moves. There's a particular kind of pain that's especially hard to release, and it's not the pain of bad things happening. It's the pain of incomplete things. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect. Our brains hold on much more tightly to incomplete tasks than to finished ones. That's why you can remember the movie you walked out of, but forget the ones you finished. That's why the relationship that ended mid-sentence haunts you more than the one that had a clean ending. Most things we can't let go of are Zeigarnik problems. They feel unfinished. We needed closure that never came. We needed the apology that was never given. We needed the explanation, the acknowledgement, the ending that made sense. So here's the first move. Give yourself the closure you never received. Not pretend closure, not toxic positivity. I mean, sit down and literally write the ending you needed. Write the letter you never got. Write the apology you deserved. Write the scene that would have made this make sense. You're not going crazy. You're not lying to yourself. You're completing an incomplete cognitive loop, so your brain can finally file it and move on. This works, not because it changes the past, but because it changes the status of the story in your head from open to closed. Here's another move that sounds simple and is secretly profound. One of the reasons we get stuck on specific people or events is that we're actually not just processing what they did. We are processing what it means. about us, about people, about the world. If he could betray me, then I can't trust anyone. If that job ended that way, then maybe I'm not as good as I thought. If that didn't work out, then maybe I'm just not someone who gets the good things. These are the real beliefs, and they're the ones keeping you stuck. The event was the trigger. The meaning you attached to it is the trap. So the second move, separate the specific from the general. This specific person made this specific choice in this specific context. That's it. That's all. It doesn't mean everyone will do that. It doesn't mean you caused it. It doesn't mean the universe is arranged against you. One data point is not a pattern. Treat it like what it is, an isolated event. Process it, learn from it if there's something to learn, and then refuse to let it write the rules for your entire future. I want to show you a quick exercise. I call it the so what ladder. Take whatever you're stuck on. Start with the surface statement and ask, so what, until you hit the real fear. Example, my last relationship ended badly. So what? So maybe I picked the wrong person. So what? So maybe I have bad judgment. So what? So maybe I'll always make the same mistake. So what? So maybe I'll end up alone. There it is. That's the actual thing you're afraid of. And now you can deal with that fear directly, instead of running it in disguise as anger at your ex. Most of us are fighting proxy wars. We're angry at the surface thing because we can't face the deep thing. The so what ladder shows you what you're really dealing with. This one is subtle, but it might be the most important. Here's a question. What would it actually mean for you to be over this? Most people have never consciously answered that question. And what they're unconsciously holding in mind is something like, I'll be over it when it doesn't hurt at all, when I can think about it completely neutrally, when it's like it never happened. That's not a real destination. That's a fantasy. Things that mattered to you will always have some emotional weight. The goal isn't to reach zero. The goal, and this is the reframe, is to reach neutral forward motion. Meaning, the event exists in your history. It shaped you. You might still feel something when you think about it, but it no longer directs your decisions. It no longer defines your identity. It no longer costs you energy every day. That's the real finish line. Not numbness, not erasure, integration. The event becomes part of your story without being the point of your story. Remember Anne, the product manager? The last time I heard from her, indirectly through someone who knows her, she'd started her own company. Small, but growing. She still talks about the startup that let her go, but differently now. She says something like, "That was the kick I needed, even if I wouldn't have chosen it." Not, "It was fine." It wasn't fine. Not, "I'm grateful they fired me." She's not. But the file is closed. She's not in that room anymore. That's integration. That's the finish line. Here's the unexpected twist in this section. A lot of people who successfully let go of one thing immediately go find another thing to be stuck on. Different person, same pattern. Different loss, same loop. Because the issue was never the specific event. The issue was a habitual relationship with pain that needs to be consciously interrupted. I knew a guy, brilliant, warm, emotionally self-aware, who spent 2 years getting over a divorce. Did the therapy, did the work, really processed it. And 6 months after he was healed, he was in a new relationship and doing the exact same thing, creating the same dynamic, the same arguments, the same ending. Not because he was stupid, because he hadn't examined the pattern underneath the event. The event was the symptom. The pattern was the disease. So, don't just let go of the specific thing. Ask yourself what relationship with pain you've developed and whether you want to carry that forward. Okay, real practical moves for after the letting go. First, fill the space intentionally. The space that pain occupied, the cognitive space, the emotional bandwidth, doesn't fill itself with good things automatically. You have to put something there consciously. This is why people who are recovering from anything, grief, heartbreak, failure, do better when they pick up a new project, learn something new, pour into a relationship that's been neglected. Not as distraction, as reclamation. You're saying, this space is mine now. I'm choosing what goes here. Second, revise your identity forward. Remember how we talked about pain becoming identity? You have to write a new identity to replace it. Not, I am someone who was wronged, but I am someone who processed something hard and chose to keep going. That's also an identity, and it's a more useful one. Third, be patient with the echoes. Healing isn't linear. You'll have moments, even after you thought you were done, where the grief or the anger comes back. A song, a smell, an anniversary, a random Tuesday. This doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. The measure isn't whether the feeling returns. The measure is how long it stays and whether it directs your behavior. Echoes are normal. Letting echoes make your decisions is the thing to watch. There's an old image I love, a lighthouse keeper. His job isn't to stop the storms. His job is to keep the light on during them. You can't let go of the storms. They come. Some of them are brutal. Some of them leave wreckage. But you are not the storm. You're the light. Letting go isn't about becoming someone without a history of storms. It's about refusing to let the storms define whether your light is on or off. Your job, after all of this, is to keep the light on. For yourself, for whoever's trying to find their way in the dark near you. The third shift. Healing is not the absence of history. It's the presence of forward motion. You will always have been through what you've been through. The question is whether you're carrying it or carrying yourself because of it. Those are two completely different weights. All right, let me bring this home. We covered 3 shifts today, and I want to leave them clearly in your mind. Shift 1. Stop fighting the fact. Start grieving the loss. Fighting the fact keeps the wound open. Grieving the loss, really acknowledging it without judgment, is the first step toward the scar that actually holds. Shift 2. Letting go is not a moral statement. It's a practical decision. Releasing the anger doesn't mean what happened was okay. It means you're done paying for it. It means the person or event that hurt you no longer gets a vote in your future. Shift 3. Healing is not the absence of history. It's the presence of forward motion. You don't become someone who was never hurt. You become someone who was hurt and decided to move anyway. That's not a small thing. That's actually one of the most extraordinary things a human being can do. I'll tell you something personal. I've had my version of all of these. The professional thing I couldn't let go. The relationship I replayed. The version of my life I kept grieving in the background while pretending to move on. And the moment that changed things for me wasn't some massive breakthrough. It was quieter than that. It was just a moment where I realized the person I'm waiting to vindicate me isn't coming. The apology I'm waiting for isn't coming. The version of events where I was right and they admitted it isn't coming. And I had a choice. I could keep waiting in a room where the fire went out, or I could walk out the door. I chose to walk out. Not perfectly, not all at once, but I chose it, repeatedly, until the choice became easier. And I want that for you. Here's what I want you to do after this video. Not a big thing, something small. Think of the one thing you're still carrying, the one file that's still open in the back of your mind, and write one sentence, just one. This happened. It hurt. And I'm choosing, starting now, to put it down. You don't have to feel it fully yet. That's fine. The feeling will catch up to the decision, but make the decision first. If this video gave you even one thing to think about, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Not because I need the views, but because someone in your life is probably still in that room where the fire went out. And maybe they just need someone to remind them the door is right there. I'll see you in the next one.